Nigerians easily. Like one thing that I found very interesting here in Nigeria is in Lagos rather, that people pay to access the beach. I was like, wow, like I've never been in such a situation. But it was interesting. Out of all the beach, can I say beaches that I went to,
Oh, it's good.
they are really, one of them was Landmark, which I saw the value for money for. They have a lot of stuff over there that it's actually value for your money. But the other beaches, wahala, just taking my money for
But
no
you,
reason.
in Takwa Bay, you saw boat ride. So entry a new country often comes with some shock. After spending almost a month in Kenya, I experienced a lot of culture shock. And as I believe, Brian, did you experience similar thing after spending more than 4 weeks in Nigeria? So we would like to share some of the culture shock I experienced when I was in Kenya and he experienced now that he's in Nigeria. The first one I experienced it was not really a culture shock. I know it happens everywhere else, but it was difficult for me to adjust in a country that uses right hand drive. So when I'm to enter a bus, I often have to go to the other side. For me to figure that out, it took a while, and I'm not sure I ever figured it out. What was your first culture shock?
So speaking of rides, on my side, your Ubers and your Bolts have fully air conditioned. That's something like you don't find in Bolt or in Uber in Nairobi is a bit cold, but now if you go to Mombasa, you won't find the drivers putting the air conditioners fully conditioned. And that's something that was shocked me. I was like, guest fuel is not expensive in Nigeria.
No. So okay, although oftentimes that happens. Sometimes you do not get to get her AC, but you have to ask them that, could you please turn it on?
Interesting. There's never been one driver who has not done.
Lucky you. Then the other one was when I first went to a grocery store. I was expecting it to be packed in a polythene bag. Then I was told I needed to buy a bag. So apparently they banned polythene bag, nylon, in Kenya. So it was a shock to me. So I have to buy a bag to pack this, like a whole lot of groceries I'm buying here. So I had to
you just have to adjust. Even for us Kenyans, it took some time before we adjusted. I think that I found actually it was really shocking to me. When I came here, there was no money. So I've never experienced this in my life. Like there's no money, and so I thought that maybe there'd be an efficient mobile money transfer, like something that you don't have to have internet. People can. So I found it a bit shocking that it was so difficult to transact, and international cards were not working. So I was really shocked. I've never been in a country where international cards did not work. So that was a bit shocking on my side.
Yeah, so there was, the time he came, there were a lot of jumbled monetary policy by the government. So even residents were finding it difficult. So you can imagine what a foreigner would feel. Then the other thing I experienced, the coldness. I know there are places that are cold, but when I was in Nairobi, it was oftentimes 14, 19 degrees. I know there are places too in Nigeria that are cold, like Jos when I was in Jos. So, but having to stay in a very cold place for a long time, it was difficult for me. But although when I went to Mombasa's weather was more humid, just like Lagos, because it's close to the coast. So that was the usual weather I know. But in Nairobi, and it did not come with jackets. It was difficult.
I remember we had actually to go buy him a jacket. Speaking of the coast, one thing that I found very interesting here in Nigeria is in Lagos rather, that people pay to access the beach. I was like, wow, like I've never been in such a situation. But it was interesting. Out of all the can I say beaches that I went to,
oh, it's good.
they are really, one of them was Landmark, which I saw the value for money for that, because there's a lot. You guys can Google Landmark Beach. I'm not advertising Landmark, but I'm just telling you to look at it. They have a lot of stuff over there that it's actually value for your money. But the other beaches, wahala, just taking my money for no reason.
In Takwa Bay, you saw boat ride.
Just to access, there was nothing much over there. Sorry, Takwa Bay, guys.
So there's another thing. I don't know whether it was just one-off. So at the train station, there were separate queue for ladies and guys. So I'd been on the ladies queue. I was just wondering that people in my front, all ladies, back, all ladies. So, but there was nobody that could answer. Like, I was just like, what is happening? So I'd got to the front until I now saw, okay. So they were actually checking. A lady was the one checking people. So it's a ballet. So I had to just go back to the guys' place. So stylishly, I just had to use Koro and enter the guys' queue. So it's never happened to me in Nigeria where you have separate queues. Although I know sometimes it happens, but it's just something that I just bump into at park, maybe at churches or mosque, or maybe, but it's not.
You know, actually, what happened is due to the terror attacks that Kenya became more like everywhere you go, there are guards that actually search for things and all that. This one is quite RPG, but I must say this because I found it interesting.
Okay, I think I know what to say.
Nigerian men like pissing along the road, and the interesting thing is that these guys have no shame. They just do it openly. Like, you know, okay, I know men all over the world do it, but these guys don't. You know, you go hide in the bush. They don't hide in the bush. Yeah. So sometimes you see this man who's almost the age of your father, and he's just doing it on the road openly. The cars are coming and are facing him. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I found that strange. I've been seeing that a lot when around Lagos. I don't know if it's true.
So open defecation is still a problem in some part of the country. So that's why you often see people peeing on the road. Even sometimes.
Yeah, people in Kenya also pee in the road, I say. But you understand what I'm saying? Like, they're not secretive about it over here.
Yeah, okay. One other thing is, I understand they pay rent monthly in Kenya. So monthly, in Nigeria, it's yearly. And sometimes you may even have to pay biannually in some places. So having to pay rent monthly was strange to me. Of course, at the end of it, I know in South Africa, for instance, they do the same thing, and in some European countries. But in Nigeria, yearly. And so,
can I say shocked? I found it quite interesting, which I actually like. Like, Nigerians easily, like, people in the office will tell you good night, and that's not something, especially in Nairobi, very common. Like, people in the office, some people, myself, I don't mind, but there's some people who have some toxic masculinity in Kenya, in that you can't tell a fellow man good night. so at first I was just like, this is interesting. Like, but I don't find it. But some people, like, it's not a common phrase that people would tell each other, like when they're leaving the office. But here I found it good night. So the first I was like, from my desk mate to the gate man to the person along the streets, they just tell you good night. It was really nice.
Just I think it's more or less like a cultural thing that people do. So if you do not greet somebody, you often may just have this guilt that I may come across as somebody who is rude, or I have grudge against the person, but it's just one of those common things Nigerians do. I think one last thing that it's not a culture shock, but then it's something that I found interesting. On Kenyan notes, Kenyan shilling notes, there are no pictures of people. Unlike in Nigeria, we have on every denomination, there are faces of prominent people in the country or some firsts. Then they also use coin. So the very first day I went to the supermarket, I was given a whole lot of coin. I brought some back to Nigeria, so it was just like, what do I do with this? I had to dash some out to some of the guys around. It's one of those things that great experience.
Actually, about that, the money thing, it's after the new constitution is when they changed that. So in 2010, you did your homework quite well. So after that is when now they decided to remove all the. What do you think, guys? Tell us if you've been to either of these countries or some of these things that shocked you. Let us know.
And if you've not been to any of these countries, pack your bag. There are many places you could have swell time, like Brian did in Nigeria. Nigeria is a place to be.
Nigeria is lovely, back in Lagos for sure.
And you must also visit Calabar.
Calabar, of course. The Kenyans understand when they say Calabar. Hi guys, welcome again. Welcome to our YouTube channel. This is Yusuf, my guy, and we have me on the camera, and we're here to rock the shit. All right.